And you were saying Riverside was the best.
It's all a ruse because they're not paying me, and I wanted to promote them. It's a new concept.
Ah,
It's a
it's so
new
that you can
concept.
be like, look, I'm telling people you're great. I've done it for this many. I think my time is worth this much.
Exactly. And also, if you could do me a favor and fix the audio thing that I messed up, because my interface, because I'm doing dual system recording. It's a throwback to old film. Because Adam's Family harkens back to ye old days.
Of 1992.
Yes, 91, 91. So
Oh,
very
91.
old, very very old. And I'd never seen it before.
Yes, this so when you said this, I was so surprised.
For good reason. And I had no idea why until I put it on and I went, well, of course I should have seen this. However, what could be more perfect than seeing it for this occasion? And now I have Adam's Family Values to look forward to. So, of course, folks, you know
Uh-huh.
what you're watching, you know what you're listening to. It's the Adams Family Movie Club. And we're sticking mainly to the first one because I haven't seen the second one, as I just said. So, as they say in advertising, tell them what they're gonna see. Show it to them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, so Joe suggested this, as maybe you guessed because I hadn't seen it before. And Joe, as Joe was saying, I'm not going to repeat everything we just said because we are recording at long last.
Oh yeah, this one's been. It's not because you've been resistant to watching the Addams Family. It's just that every time something happened that
That's
got in
right.
the way.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
and it was beginning to feel cursed, which on that you think, well, that's sort of very Adams and spooky, but it's not, because now you've seen it. It's not. I mean, were you aware of the concept of the Adams Family generally? Like, you knew what that they existed, but were you aware kind of the intricacies of how it works?
Not to the degree that it's in the film, but I was aware of the show. I had seen reruns as a kid, the
Hmm.
old live action show, and I'd also seen The Munsters. Now, I'm not sure if I'd
Hmm.
conflated a couple of them or certain elements, but when I saw, for instance, It, and I knew about Thing, and a few other bits and bobs, like I knew the
Yeah.
name Morticia. I knew the name Gomez, but I never sort of pieced it together as much. And I knew that Raul Julia and Anjelica Houston were in it. And then I thought, why haven't I seen this? Because it's fantastic.
Well, Values, I think, is the closest thing to a perfect film that's ever been made. This
Wow.
first one, I think, obviously you haven't seen Values yet, which is the second one.
Not yet.
Um, this
We should do a
film,
follow up to this, which based on the arrangement that resulted in this final recording, will take us about a year and a half.
yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, the just the original point I was going to make actually before I continue was that the idea of the Addams Family, as you will now know, is that they are a perfectly normal, loving family unit,
That's
and
right.
it's
Yes.
other people who are wrong. That's the thing. The villains in any Addams Family thing, I think the monsters was similar as well. The villains in anything Addams Family are very normal people,
Yes.
and
Yes. Because they're
it's
off.
always the really nice, blonde, respectable members of society are the villains for the Addams Family.
Yes.
And it's kind of played as they're creepy and they're kooky, but actually they're a really solid, loving family unit.
And they have a unconditional love for the children. They take
Hmm.
joy in the children, and they are rabidly passionate about one another. Morticia
Oh
and
yeah,
Gomez. Yes,
yeah.
that was
It's
some of
like
the
the
biggest
perfect
laughs for me.
family. Oh
What's
well,
that?
them being obsessed with each other.
And also, like when she's on the wheel of death, and the red hot pokers are being discussed. Like, there's a lot of S&M talk throughout the movie.
Oh yeah, and this is a family film.
Yes, it is. These are the kind of family values, which, I mean, they called it the next one that, but these are the kind of family values that America thinks that it's all about. And yes, the evil people, they're all the normies, if you will,
Hmm.
which is similar to Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen Elvira's films, but I don't remember a lot of them. I know that she's the sort of like wacky weirdo that moves in. That's her thing, right?
Yes, and she's the deviant one because she's got her tits out. So and then Edie McClurg is the bad guy, or the villain, the heavy. So that's a bit different, but in essence, it's sort of like, hey, different people are better.
Yeah. And so this, what was you saying about like sort of loving the children and their passion for each other? The Some of the lines you were saying that really got you right in the very beginning has one of, I think, my favorite exchanges, which is the last night, Gomez, you're a demon. You frightened me. Do it again.
Yeah, it's great, and I also love the throw off of the like you kind of know what you're getting into, but the very first shot is of the carolers, and then there's no mention made of Christmas ever again.
That I watched that opening on repeat as a child on the VHS. I'm surprised it never wore down. The amount of times
Mhm.
and it's the soundtrack wasn't readily available, that sort of thing. So to listen to that music, I had to keep rewinding that part of the VHS, and it's what are they doing?
Yeah, yeah.
And then it slowly like fades, and then there's the. But the music in it is amazing because when I when I think of sort of cultural goth things,
Mm-hmm.
music plays a big part in setting the scene. You've got your more sort of traditionally what we consider goth things like the Hunger, where they're using Bauhaus.
Yes.
Um, but sometimes I will refer to myself as an Addams Family type goth, where the music is like it's uh, Eastern European folk music and waltzes and it, strings and. But I mean, there's this film has it's obviously much later into the film, but one of the finest musical performances in cinema,
During
which
the
is
Mamushka.
the Mamushka. There is a full length version of it with extra lyrics and more music and stuff, um, where he just starts listing off famous brothers.
Oh, see, I didn't
Um,
know that. And my light
yeah,
changed for some reason automatically when it heard that. So I have this stunt light that's a softbox that will go from warm to cool sometimes. So look, we're going with that because maybe it said it needs to be a little more goth. I'm
yeah,
wearing
just
black. I'm
cool
doing
the
my
light
best.
down. Well, this film also actually, in terms of light,
Mm.
has, I think it's considered, I mean, especially for that era of cinema, one of the most expensive lighting effects, practical lighting effects that have been achieved. And had you read or seen about this?
I've read about it, and am I correct in guessing that it is Anjelica Houston's
Yes.
special light on the eye?
Yeah, because it has to be in every single shot, no matter what's happening.
Exactly.
So she
And
always
I listened to a
just
bit
has
of
it.
I just listened to a bit of a Barry Sonnenfeld interview. And of course, folks, the director, the fine director and cinematographer who didn't cinematography this film, but did Raising Arizona, Blood Simple, a number of other Coen Brothers movies, as well as Throw Mama from the Train, even though he's not credited as that, and
Mhm.
did take over cinematographic duties when Owen Roseman quit. But the light, he said, the only thing he talked to Owen Roseman about that it was like a hard limit. He said, I don't want to mess around with your lighting. I want you to do your thing, but I need two things. I need to set up the shots and I need that light on Anjelica Houston, no matter where she's standing. If she's next to the window, the light's coming from over here.
Mhm. Well, Barry Sonnenfeld started doing porn. That's how he got his. As if you knew this, his starting film was porn.
Well, I
Filming
knew it,
it,
but
not
the
being in
audience
it.
is learning it for the first time, and golly,
Yeah.
this is
Well,
revelatory.
there is. He wrote an autobiography called Barry Sonnenfeld Please Call Your Mother. I think
Yes.
that was what it was
Yeah.
called. But I read, I think it came out during lockdown,
Yes, it did.
because when I interviewed Daniel Handler, aka Lemony Snicket, he said that he was going to do an interview series with Barry Sonnenfeld, but because it was just as lockdown happened, they just never got to do that thing, because Barry Sonnenfeld was the director and producer of the Series Unfortunate Events Netflix series.
Yeah.
And he was one of the producers for the film version, and he also got fired from it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, both Daniel Handler and Barry Sonnenfeld got fired from the Series Unfortunate Events movie.
How far into production did they get fired?
I don't remember. It was, I think Barry Sonnenfeld wrote about it in his book, and I think I don't know if I'm getting conflated with him and Daniel, but one of them was in an airport afterwards and just announced to the lounge that I've just been fired by, I can't remember who the studio was. I don't want to
Well, tell you what, I'll look it up. I'll look it up because you have a lot of a font of ready knowledge, so I'm happy to fill in the cracks.
I'll do that one because I don't want to misquote it in case, unless 20th Century Fox is, of course, not in the wrong here.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably are.
I'm sure in some way, no matter if they're the production company or not, they're to be blamed.
About Addams Family, I don't know what the version you watched would have had at the beginning, whether they changed them nowadays, but it was Columbia TriStar made the Addams Family. So I mean, you don't see that anymore with the Pegasus and the
yeah, no, I love that.
Good old
I love that
intros.
opening. Yeah, I didn't see that one. I saw the Paramount one, and yeah, the history of the production companies is really interesting on this because it was originally made for Orion Pictures, but it was right near the end of Orion Pictures' run, and it's really a good thing for all of us that it wasn't released under the Orion banner because Orion went bankrupt, and a lot of their films, from Something Wild to Hannah and Her Sisters and a slew of others, Woody Allen made a lot of his films for Orion. They were unavailable for years and years and years because they were absorbed into MGM. Orion is now an active imprint once again, but this was sold to Paramount in almost like not a fire sale, but Paramount wanted it and then they didn't want it, and it was still in production at that time. So they were on shaky ground for most of the shoot.
I mean, the film wasn't made for a lot of money, was it? It was it was a budget.
30 million, which it seems that's like an indie movie now.
Yeah. Well, I know, and also it was Barry Sonnenfeld's first film.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they tried to give it to Tim Burton.
Mm-hmm.
And
Terry Gilliam. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sure there was another one as well. Maybe it was just those two. But yeah, they didn't want it because honestly, the script was a mess. I think was the thing, is that they didn't really even have a full story, and that Barry Sonnenfeld was like, "Cool, I'll give it a go." But what I was saying a little bit ago about Addams Family Values being the closest thing to a perfect film, this one actually is a mess. The first film, but the plot is all over the place. It doesn't make any sense. But it kind of doesn't matter,
right?
Because you're having a really good time watching it. You're like, is it his brother? Like, why is this random man? He's been to the Bermuda Triangle. He's had his break. Like, it doesn't really make any sense. Nothing's particularly answered,
right?
But you're having a good time watching it.
And you sort of fill in the blanks yourself a little bit. I started thinking, wait a second, that's really Fester. That's really got to be Fester because of certain things. And then by the mamushka, you go, well, there's no way. You can't just, fake your way through the mamushka. Whether or not he forgot the password, any of that stuff, whether or not he was horrified by everything, there's no getting around the mamushka.
And then Then at the end when the lightning zaps, it's all over the place. I was saying about the music, the mamushka scene. I don't know if you found this in your research, but the conductor of the band for the party scene is Mark Shaman, who did the music.
That's right. That's right. Mark Shaman, the legendary composer, and let's see, Hairspray, and he worked a lot with Bette
South
Midler.
Park movie.
There you go. The man behind Uncle Fucker.
Yeah, no, I think he did South Park Bigger, Longer, Uncut.
Yeah, no, that song, shut your fucking mouth, Uncle Fucker.
Yeah. I don't know whether Trey Parker or Matt Stone wrote some of the lyrics, but Mark Shaman, I'm sure, did the music for South Park.
No, they definitely handled the lyrics, but that jaunty tune that gives the lyrics that bed that they can rest on, Mr. Shaman.
Yeah, and Hairspray. He's so every time I see his name come up in anything, I always think we're in for an audible treat.
Absolutely, and you know that there's some element of camp, whether it's subdued or not. And he was everywhere. He was in all the cabaret stuff in New York. He was all over the place. I mean, in a good way. He was involved in everything. His fingers were in a lot of pies.
Well, when you say cabaret stuff, you mean like playing piano, or
doing all that stuff in New York at the clubs with various singers. So he was always involved in musical theater and cabaret, like the smaller clubs where they even cabaret with the large, sort of more general use of the term. Mm-hmm. Because now it means almost like a very specific thing. Like sort of you do stuff that would be considered cabaret, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, like in a New York context, I guess like a Joe's Pub sort of
That's
evening with type thing.
Exactly. Like the club, I think it's still around, called Don't Tell Mamas, which would be like Broadway show people having some fun, singing some more niche material.
He was the pianist for that.
Yes, indeed. And then did a lot of arranging. I could look him up too, but you know what? There's too much territory to cover. Yes, the script was all over the place, and the big change, folks, about Fester is that he might be an imposter. You're not sure. He seems like an imposter at the beginning, and in the end, in the original script, was an imposter, but then Gomez welcomed him with open arms to the family. And the actors were not pleased with this. And so their emissary, their representative, was Christina Ricci. And as a 9-year-old, she extremely articulately convinced Sonnenfeld and Scott Rudin, the producer, the legendarily temperamental producer. There was an article a while ago when there was a lot of stories about assistants who had been treated rather poorly by their bosses. He's one of those phone throwers, broke a window, throwing a laptop, that kind of guy. But apparently
I think this is mentioned in Barry's
yeah.
In Barry's book. He talks about Scott Rudin being an absolute fucking nightmare.
Yeah. I have to read that book. I've loved the interviews that I heard. He was on Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, which is actually one of the greatest repository of old showbiz interviews ever made available, because it's funny, but there's also loads of information thanks to Frank Santopadre.
And also he's a really, really good interviewee, Barry Sonnenfeld.
Yes.
Because he's really honest. He's neurotic. He's funny. I really highly recommend this book. It's so funny, and there's lots of facts about the making of Addams Family and series of unfortunate events, and obviously he then went on to do Men in Black, Wild Wild West, which is obviously infamously not great.
Not terrific.
No, not terrific. But he's just so brilliant. The book has one of my, I guess you wouldn't have, unless he'd said this in an interview, about the making of the Addams Family. He had to go off to do something. So he was on a really strict schedule, shooting on that particular day. He had to go get a plane. Mm-hmm. So he had to leave at a particular time. And toward the sort of 2/3 into the Addams Family film, there's when they're all living in the motel.
Yes.
And Morticia gets the job working for the daycare. And there's the scene when she's reading the book to the children.
Which, by the way, was my laugh out loud by myself. Started crying with laughter. I was laughing so hard I laughed through the whole thing, Federal Express, through after that, because the children crying. I don't think I've ever seen that level of extended children crying.
Well, this is what the story is. Um, so she reads the book, and then and then children, what do we think of that? And then all the children start crying. But so basically, the children were being awful, and in particular, that really like angelic looking blonde one
Yeah.
that starts the crying was
Yeah.
being a dickhead. That's the only way it's sort of described. They were being a dickhead,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't do what they were told. And Barry needed to leave, so he needed a response. Like he needed them to do it like now.
Yeah.
And then he like leant into the camera operator and was like, "Focus on the blonde one." And then Barry he was like, "Start rolling." And Barry, right. So it's time for everyone's injections. And so then the kids start crying because they think they're going to have injections. And he's like, film them. So they're crying because he said they were all going to get, they all had jabs. And then one of the the kid's parents was so angry that they got the shot and Barry was like, right, goodbye, gotta go. Ran to his car. And one of the parents chased him and was like, come back here, you motherfucker. And was like slamming on the window of his car as he was like, yeah.
I
So
love
the children
that.
crying, why it is so good is because, he told all of these tiny little angelic but horrible children they were going to get injections.
That's fantastic. I think I did wonder. I thought, how are these kids so good at this? And it does linger. I mean, the lingering is what sent me into fits of laughter.
Let us pause now to honor the removal of copywritten material.
That's how it did 200 million at the box office. Because the thing is,
I think is that a lot for the time?
it is. Well, the budget was 30 million. So this was a blockbuster smash. Even more satisfying when you read about that because it was so the unwanted stepchild at the studio, because it was purchased for Paramount from Orion by one executive. That executive got fired. Then the new person was saying, this is uneditable, or this won't cut, this is trash, this is terrible. But then when it was screened for all of the executives, there was no laughter whatsoever. So Sonnenfeld really thought he was screwed. But then he was away for 20 minutes, came back, and everyone was like applauding him and hugging him. And he said, what's going on? No one made a peep. And they said, no, it's because the head guy, Stanley, I think Jaffe, was here and he didn't laugh. So we could not laugh. But they loved the movie.
That must have been in the book. That was absolutely in the book. I've got a vague recollection of hearing that.
By the way, I'm thrilled that you read the book. I love that you know more about the thing than I do, because it's a nice turnabout. Usually I'm the one, and guess what else happened? So I know some stuff, but you are really an expert. You're a subject matter expert. Yes.
I've come in as the Addams Family expert on this. It was one of those films I watched the cartoon series when I was a kid. I was obsessed with it, and like I said, I feel like I'm an Addams Family goth. That's the sort of. I mean, that's why I have the pencil mustache now. It's sort of part Vincent Price, part Gomez Addams. It had that kind of fun. I don't know. They're just having a really good time while everything is like spooky. I'm doing the little quotation marks.
Froze
there.
for a second.
They're spooky with quotation marks.
Yeah.
That's what I love about things. It made me, as a child, want a polar bear rug.
Yeah. It's really tough to get one that's an active biter, though. It's very hard. You have to get the right source for that. It's not. You can't just go to any rug shop. You really got to hunt for it.
Fees, all of that sort of stuff.
The tariffs.
Also,
oh my God.
It made me want to learn fencing as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, you see Gomez Addams with a rapier, and you think, I'd like to do that. He wears nice suits. He does, does sword arts.
Yes.
He sings. He dances. He loves his family. It's just that's.
And he's a gymnast. But
yeah, he is a what's the word? He's a model citizen, is what he is. That's someone you should look up to.
Absolutely. Not the judge, because he's corruptible. They can buy the judge.
Oh yeah, I mean Gomez might have been smashing his windows.
Yes, and maybe I can understand the judge's enmity towards him, because that's a lot of windows. Also, very lucky that Paul Benedict, the actor, I can't remember the judge's name, doesn't have a split second later, or doesn't have the crash a split second later, or earlier rather, because he could have ingested some glass in his Fruity Pebbles or whatever he's eating.
And also that, as I've just remembered, it was my first introduction to American cereal.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I had never seen anything that looked like that in a cereal bowl before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we didn't get sort of funny coloured ones like that. I remember eating Pokemon cereal and there was like little marshmallow Pokemon, but that wasn't as colourful as what that man has in his bowl.
It might be alphabets, actually. Alphabets, because it looked like a bunch of letters. You know what? I bet it is Fruit Loops, because alphabets, I can't remember. I think they're multicolored, but I haven't had any of those over-sugared cereals in quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you never used to be able to get them here. I mean, my first time in the States, I brought back Fruit Loops, because now you can buy them in most supermarkets. I mean, you pay like an excess because it's an import.
Yeah.
But you couldn't get them, not where I lived anyway.
Well, the food regulations in England are something of wonder. And I love it because I can eat anything over there. Here, if I have a frozen pizza, I get a little woozy. My throat gets a little scratchy because of all the crap that's pumped into it. Over there, anything at all. I didn't know about ready-made meals and how you could actually eat them until I was in England for a long stretch of time.
I was on tour with some people from Dragula, and they bought one of those. The brand is called Arizona?
Arizona iced tea.
Yeah, and there's like a blue one.
Yeah.
So they bought a blue one. I think it was Cocoa Cane. And then she was like, oh, this tastes different than in America. And I said, oh, it's probably because the things in the one in America are illegal in this country. Because it's blue dyes. I mean, this one was still blue, but I think the American standard thing that makes things blue is illegal here.
I imagine so. And also the corn syrup that is used to sweeten every beverage like that is not allowed in England. For instance, Coca-Cola, you can have one in England and not feel sick afterwards. At least I would feel sick if I had one here. I don't really drink soda. I don't like carbonation. But I have to have like one or two like half cans when I'm over in England, because I go, wow, everything's better here food-wise, and it's a lot cheaper. But
that's the first time anyone has ever said that food is better over in the UK.
I know. Well, that's the myth. I think that this has been propagated by a bunch of people who just want to make sure that people don't pop over there and just hoard the food. I know that was legendarily, it was a legendary thing that English food was terrible. I don't know, America just raced right past it because, we're number one and we got to stay that way.
Number one for what, though? Just everything?
Well, just everything, that's the legend of America. But once you visit the rest of the world, you're like, I'm not sure about that. So, hey, listen, I mean, if we've offended a number of people, hopefully some Americans are up in arms. But I think, anyone in the queer goth, particularly the Addams Family goth community, what is the origin of the family? What is their heritage or nationality? Spanish?
I think they're sort of vaguely Eastern European.
For some reason, Hungarian popped into my head, and I don't know why.
I think because all the music is very sort of
Estonian?
Folk, sort of Romanian, Eastern European folk. I thought you meant where did they come from? I said they're a comic strip from the 20s or 30s.
Well, that's their ethnicity, comic strip.
Yeah. Well, are they from the 20s or 30s?
Ooh, that's a good question. All the things that you think one would know entering into a movie club like this,
I
but
feel like they're from the 20s. So they're from the New Yorker, I think, because they
yes.
were by Charles Addams.
I have an answer for the ethnicity. Gomez's ancestry in the 1964 episode Art in the Addams Family. Granted, this is the TV show and not the original comic. Gomez refers to Spain as his ancestral land, and Morticia's family. It says Morticia's family. Morticia calls Gomez Ahmad's Castilian. So or Castilian. That does not answer her origin at all. Yeah. I like, though, also they're saying, like, oh, Mama Addams. And for a minute or two, I thought, wait, is she an Addams? No, she is by marriage, but there's a lot of strange heritage stuff going on.
Yeah, so, well, Grandmama is Gomez's mother.
Right.
So she is an Addams. Morticia's parents are dead.
Right. What was their crime? Do you remember their crime? I can't remember their crime.
I can't remember the crime in the film. In the animated one, their voice, I'm sure it's Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy. The voice of Morticia's parents in the Grandma Flump is that, which one's that? That's Morticia's mother. Flump. Oh yes, because Morticia's maiden name is Flump.
Okay, there you go. And of course, played by the legendary Carol Kane.
Well, so the film changes it.
Okay.
In that, I think Grandmama, the one in the film, sometimes is referred to as Flump. So I think they might have confused it, but actually she is
Gomez.
No, in the film, she calls her Mama, doesn't she?
She does.
This is all so in I think in the actual Addams Family lore, she's Gomez's mother.
Okay. I assumed that she was Morticia's mom mainly because of ethnicity similarity.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And also, we were talking about food and the cuisine she prepares.
Play with your food. Yeah, she's played by. Does Carol Kane play her in the second one?
That's a good question. Speaking of other versions and sequels, I can't remember the name. Addams Family Reunion. I have a feeling you've seen it because you seem to be somewhat keen on the universe of Addams Family.
I've not seen Addams Family Reunion. Wow. I tried to. I rented it from like a Blockbuster or something.
Yeah.
And I didn't ever finish it. It's bad.
Wow.
You can watch a trailer for it. I mean, yes, they have Tim Curry as Gomez. Yes, they have Daryl Hannah as Morticia. But it's just not good.
Yeah.
I don't know why that one fumbled so bad. Was Raul Julia dead?
Yes. He died. He died a few years, 94, I think. He had stomach cancer that he was, I think, battling during the filming of Street Fighter, which.
Well, yeah, he knew Street Fighter was going to be his last film, and he did it because his kids love it.
And it was a nice chunk of money for him. And meanwhile, he had to deal with Jean-Claude Van Damme, who apparently was completely out of control during the filming. Used up to or ingested up to 10 grams of cocaine per day. Isn't there another term for that? Like I thought in the waiting or like
overdose?
Yeah, that's right. You buy that. I guess they'd say, "Do you want an ounce? Do you want a half an ounce? Or do you want the overdose?" And I think he was like, "I'll take the overdose." How did his heart survive when he was also doing extensive and strenuous weightlifting and kickboxing and all of that stuff? I don't know how he's alive.
And he was the lead in this film, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And I don't. It is Kylie Minogue is in this film, isn't she?
Yes, she is. And she had an affair with Jean-Claude Van Damme, which then raises another question. How could he get it up on 10 grams of cocaine a day? There must have been supplements.
I mean, I guess it's Kylie Minogue, right?
Yeah, you know what? You're right. You're right. Sex Kylie, she can break any barriers. She did hire a disco out for the cast and crew, which is very nice because they needed a little bit of rest and relaxation after having to wait all day for Jean-Claude Van Damme to come out of the trailer. And then one time he wouldn't leave the trailer, which seems to me like a bad move on a set because you know everyone's going to be pissed. It's not going to be a good day. And it's not like, it's kind of like when people like lock themselves in a bathroom. There's only like one variation. There's two people break down the door. Eventually you just come out of the bathroom. Like, what are you going to do when you're in the bathroom?
And there's no other way to get out. It's
exactly.
You have to face it at some. That door has to open at some point.
Yes.
I mean that film is trash, Street Fighter, but Raul Julia is the best part of that film. The scenery is chewed beyond recognition. And I always misquote it, but it was like, you may remember the day that M. Bison came to your village, killed your family, and burnt it to the ground. But to me, it was Tuesday. He has that little speech, and then he says something like, when he's like, I am, as he like floats up in the air. The man was just incredible, wasn't he?
He really was. There's a great story about him during the filming of One from the Heart, the legendary Francis Ford Coppola film that was a tremendous financial disaster at time of release. It actually caused Coppola to lose everything, file for bankruptcy, and then be a director for hire for a number of years. I think his pinnacle of director for hire filmmaking was Jack, starring Robin Williams as a boy that had some kind of accelerated growth. So it was Robin Williams, but he's technically 12 years old, something to that effect. And the weirdest thing is his personal tutor is played by Bill Cosby. So it's a very, very strange film.
Ooh.
But One from the Heart, which actually, speaking of museum pieces, here's the VHS of the film. It's currently available on the Criterion Channel in the deluxe remastered edition, as it is on Blu-ray in 4K. It's quite a beautiful film. Oh, I just realized I have two Nastasia Kinski films next to each other. Next to it is Exposed. High fashion models getting involved in international intrigue. It's flawed, but it stars Kinski and Rudolf Nureyev. So it's kind of not essential, but it's recommended, suggested viewing.
I like not essential, but recommended viewing.
Or at least, you might maybe, have you heard of this? Maybe watch it. So Raul Julia,
what does he do in it?
They had a big camping trip, I guess, now if I'm getting the movie wrong, forgive me, folks, but who knows? No one will look it up, right? So please don't. So they had a big cast camping trip, and it was, a little bit more rustic than Raul would have preferred. So he showed up in a limousine in a tuxedo bearing champagne for everyone, which I think is fantastic.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Isn't it?
And he just a nice little my interests colliding thing that some people might enjoy is Raul Julia is in the film version, but also within a stage. I think it's the stage one that's available on Spotify of the Three Penny Opera, and he's with Ellen Green of Audrey Little Shop of Horrors fame, and he is phenomenal as McKeith. I can't remember. The film's not called the Three Penny Opera, I don't think. Is it? I think it might be called Mac the Knife.
Oh, it could be. Version. Yeah.
But Raul Julia plays McKeith, so is the lead, and it's just everything. He just sort of did the sort of things that I like. He was in a live production of Edward Gorey's Dracula.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
As Dracula. He was absolutely phenomenal, and He also, as obviously the incredible Gomez, though he set the strange precedent for Gomez to be handsome and visually appealing, which actually Gomez isn't supposed to be.
In the old TV show, is it the guy with the mustache? I mean, like the full mustache. John Aston. I think is it John Aston in the show, or am I conflating that with Munsters?
No, I think it's John Aston who plays in the TV series. But again, he's a sort of quite normal. You know, he's not grotesque. You know,
Right.
I'm not looking at him going, "Whoa." But he's just a normal looking man with a mustache in the original black and white TV series. But Raul Julia made him devilishly handsome, I think. You know,
Absolutely.
in a strange way. You know, big eyes and but all of and this is why Tim Burton got into shit for who he cast for the Wednesday series as Gomez, because people were now thinking only of Raul Julia, and Tim Burton cast someone who looks like the original illustration.
Okay.
He is supposed to be a short, wide, very large man with sort of not great teeth. You know, he's supposed to not be a devilishly handsome man. That's the point. Louis Guzman?
Oh, Louis Guzman?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
wow. So
not
I haven't
just-
seen
not-
the Wednesday series. I have
Oh.
an inkling that you have.
Yeah, well, he plays Gomez for the Wednesday series, and Catherine Zeta-Jones Morticia. But the dynamic is supposed to be it's this, you know, ethereal, vampy witch woman with this rotund, strange man that she's deeply, deeply in love with, carnally and emotionally, because they're like perfect for each other.
Oh, cara mia. Raul Julia is really irresistible, and I really am amazed that I haven't seen Kiss of the Spider Woman with him and William Hurt. Have you seen that?
It either.
Okay,
No.
it was a kind of a really groundbreaking movie at the time. It was 1984, and it was adapted from a stage play, and it is about the budding romance between a straight man and a gay man who share a prison cell.
Mm-hmm.
So
All I know about it, I'm not. I've got friends that are really obsessed with it, but I'm aware. Isn't one of them? There's a character in it that is like canonically trans.
I'm not
A
sure.
lot of trans people I know are really, really obsessed with it because of subtext and it's a very queer story, right?
Extremely queer. Extremely queer. And that was one of
Yeah.
Raul Julia's real breakout roles because, as we mentioned, One from the Heart, he was one of the stars of that, but that movie flopped tremendously. But it also featured Terry Garr and Frederick Forrest, but none of them were really names at the time. They later became names. I just had a thought about his hair in the movie. It's perfectly slicked and all that, but there's also a wonderful light on his head all the time. He's always very well. You can see the shine, and I don't know if they were as exacting with that as they were with the light on Anjelica Houston's face, which incidentally caused her a great deal of pain because of the prosthetics used.
Wait, wasn't she just wearing a lot of makeup?
A lot of makeup, but also to get her face angled in a certain way. They had a severe band on the back of her head to sort of pull up.
Oh, like a kind of face, like tape thing.
Yeah, the old school Hollywood, the old Hollywood facelift, which was tape and bands, similar to how Rob Lowe in Behind the Candelabra is viciously pulled back in that old fashion. And just like Rob Lowe, Anjelica Houston got near debilitating migraines from it, because also in order to even out her face for the lower half, she had a sort of pulling in the opposite direction set of bands on the bottom.
Jesus. And she's in a corset as well.
Yeah.
Like a really extreme corset.
Mm-hmm.
That poor
The original
woman. It was
casting
so worth
choice
it.
was so completely worth it. What might not have been worth it, maybe for her at the time, it might have felt this way. Not only were the bands so constricting, but they would often break, particularly every time she turned her head. So she eventually figured out how to turn, full body turn, without turning her head. Yes, exactly. Because the bands would break, and if they broke, that meant another like 3 hours of taking the makeup off, putting the bands on again, and then putting the paint on. And this is one of many production problems they had during the making of the film. Another one was Raul Julia bursting a blood vessel in his eye, which shut down production, understandably, for a while. And there was some other injury on the set. I can't remember what it is.
How did he burst the blood vessel?
I guess just, with the conviction and daring do, one can do anything. And that man was committed. That's a good question. I'm not sure. It didn't say in the little rundown that I read.
What could someone do to break a blood vessel? And like shouting, screaming,
straining on the toilet? I mean, I don't want me to work blue here, but that's a very good question. I think we should look that up. And meanwhile, I have these new contacts where I have to hold my phone out like this. We're working on it. We're workshopping the prescription. We're trying to figure out toric lens or non-toric. So, stay tuned, folks, for the results of that survey. Raul Julia seemed to have a really rough go of it health-wise in the early 90s.
I mean, it didn't end well.
No, it did not. And actually, the last set of cosmic insults was that I think he had survived stomach cancer, and then he got food poisoning after eating sushi on location, and then a few days later he had a stroke.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
And also, I think it's certainly worth mentioning with this film that this was, I think, the breakout role for Christina Ricci.
Absolutely. And she is amazing in it. The first second you see her on screen and the first delivery that she gives, you think, oh my God.
She was, phenomenal. In terms of also amazing, especially for, I mean, the guy who played Pugsley, just, I think he quit acting and he works as a mechanic now, I think is the thing.
Wow.
He just, he did that and then he was like, bye. The scene of
I've done it all. I can't top this. This is the pinnacle of acting. And I just, where do you go from here? I'm going to go be a mechanic.
Yeah. He just separate life. The scene with Wednesday and Pugsley doing the Shakespearean thing, again, is I would play it on repeat. The audience getting sprayed with blood from a fake severed arm. And the throat and yes, again, this is still a family film.
Indeed. And in that, you're like, well, that's, you think that is much more entertaining than the terrible song that we just saw. And before the little school pageant, whatever the talent show, you see how awful that woman is with her kid. It just looks horrible to be that kid. Yeah. When she cleans the kid's nose, which doesn't appear to be grotty in any way, with spit and a hanky.
I was going to say there's some more awful parents, but it's in the second one. And then it's got me thinking about a cameo. So Barry Sonnenfeld is in both of the films, but in the second one, he plays an overbearing parent.
Oh, wow, he's actually in it. That's great, because he should be playing a role like that.
He is in the first one.
Oh, he is? I'm sorry. Wow.
Gomez, that's a very strange scene when Gomez is playing with his toy train.
Yes.
The man on the train reading the newspaper that looks out at the giant Gomez laughing. That's Barry Sonnenfeld.
That is an amazing little bit, and I love that there's no explanation. There's just a fella on his morning commute somehow alive in this train. And I like also that he lives in the train, which belongs to Gomez, which is only ever run by Gomez, and he still looks like mildly confused when he looks out and sees Gomez, a sight that probably he sees all the time to the exclusion of any other thing.
But that's what I mean by this film is a mess. Like, that is just purely there for a laugh. But there is a very tiny living man in Gomez's miniature train set. Like you said, that seems confused that Gomez is there, despite being a tiny man in Gomez's miniature train set. And then, when they say, "Oh, your father is playing with his," no, father's playing with his trains. Again, I think a very good role model for men. He does things he loves. He has his miniature train set.
Yeah, and he blows off steam with the trains.
His miniature train set.
Exactly. Some steam trains, some diesel. Mostly electric. But yeah, and I love also their charting. Dead Man's Curve. So they know his level of fury is that I love Raul Julia's performance in toto, but also that scene specifically is fantastic because the level of rage and the rapidity of speech is wonderful. Now, staying with Raul Julia and what happened to his eye. Now, I had not read this before, and get ready to gag in all the meanings of that term. Raul Julia's eye fell out of his socket, but he caught it. Okay, now we're going to read the description. I'm going to try anyway, because again, I'm having difficulty with the reading with my contacts, and this is very small print. Okay, yeah, this is okay. I'm going to look this up. I'm going to have to do this on the laptop, folks. We're going to do it live for Bill O'Reilly fans.
Fell out.
Yeah, I fell out, but he caught it. I don't know. I can't even imagine. So we're going to have to read the description. It's worth the slight wait. Okay, I have to look up Addams Family I. Raul. And it's funny watching those interviews. There are all of them, of course, because they're on a press junket for the film. They're not going to say, "Well, it was crazy, Bobby, because my eye fell out, but I caught it." And when you know all this horrible stuff that happened, and you watch the it was a lot of fun interviews. Another great thing is watching interviews with actors who know that they're in a piece of absolute garbage, saying, "Oh, it's great. The script is wonderful." There's certain phrases they say where they're almost code words for, "God, this is terrible," because they speak in just complete generalities. Barry Sonnenfeld in an interview said that because as a director, you have to have an answer for every single question. Whether it's wrong or not, you have to be firm about it. Else, rather, if you don't, the crew can lose respect for you. And also, you can't be searching for answers around because everyone needs that answer now. So if the costumer says something, if the production, the prop person, if all of them said something like, "Do you want the notebook to be red or blue?" You have to say red or blue. And he said, but then if I get to the set and it's the wrong one, I have to go, "You know what? I didn't even realize the dress is red, so you don't even see the notebook." And he said that the way that the crew handles that generally is they go, "No problem, sir. I already have the alternate with us." And he said that "sir" is crew code for "you fucking asshole." That's kind of like, when people call you boss. "Okay, boss," it means you shithead.
That means they've had enough of you.
Yes, more than enough. And they are fed up, but they're going to pretend like they're giving you a show of respect.
On the subject of people, what they say if they know something's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I always think of Emilia Clarke talking about the final season of Game of Thrones. Because I've seen it so many times pop up in lists of things. And it's an interview saying "Are you happy with how it ended?" And she goes, she laughs and goes, yeah, amazing. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe how they finished it. Yeah, amazing.
That is so good. I'm going to look that up and watch that after this. That is good.
Is it Dakota Johnson for Madam? Was it her, Madam Web?
There's a Dakota Johnson. I can't remember the film associated, but it's probably that. And
I think it's Madam Web, where she's there yeah.
Not even trying to hide it. Speaking of press junkets, that one with Blake Lively and Parker Posey, I think it's from a few years back, but because her recent press tour for her whatever the fuck her latest movie is. Another film I'll probably never see. A film I can't wait to never watch. It caused some bit of a kerfuffle. They threw back, or actually rather, the entertainment reporter that had to deal with Blake Lively and Parker Posey on, I can't remember what film. I know someone's shouting it out right now. And thank you very much for your contribution. But much like my contact's not really working, I can't hear you. So there is a absolutely miserable clip of this entertainment reporter discussing the film, whatever film. Oh, it's the Woody Allen film. I can't remember the name, but with the two of them in it. So that narrows it down. And the reporter is asking about the beautiful gowns or dresses that they wear in the film.
Oh, and they say, would you ask a man then?
Yeah. And meanwhile, they're talking about a piece of costume, and it's a woman asking them the question. So I think contextually, it's not out of the realm of reason that she would ask this, and they don't even give her a chance. It's the first question, and then they're on her, and I think Blake Lively is gassed up by Parker Posey, who I immediately thought less of, because they're just
she's
miserable.
Encouraging her.
Oh, yeah. Oh, she is fully provoking and going along with it and goofing on and being so mean. And you think this is just a... Go ahead.
Was the film a piece of shit, though?
I don't think so. And I think that they were gassed up by working for Woody Allen, which in and of itself, a lot of people would say would be a questionable decision.
Yep.
So I think it's rather arch of them to be...
There was a lot going on that day.
Yeah, there really was. I never really knew that Blake Lively was such a carried away monster. And I really didn't have any idea Parker Posey would be in league with all that. And you can tell, oh, I know too. It's something, the film is to do with, it might be the film Celebrity. That might be it. Because the woman asks a very sort of general question that makes sense regarding the plot of the film and the characters within. To the effect of the way celebrities behave or the way celebrities are treated by fans that sometimes cross the line. And whether they have real romance or whatever. I'll put a clip in. And they take it personally and they go for the woman. And she's sitting there just clearly suffering. And then when she finally is able to leave, she goes, well, thanks very much. And then they say something like, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And to do a severe eye roll on camera, which of course she saw later on when they're cutting the piece. Totally not nice. I don't dig that at all.
What would have made that press tour more fun?
What's that?
If someone's eye had fallen out and they'd caught it.
Yeah, as long as they caught it. So here's how that happened on the Addams Family shoot. Raul Julia, who played Gomez, went out to unwind after a day of filming. During the excursion, his eye fell out of its socket. There's no explanation as to how it was. Like, what was he up to? What was his carousing? Like, what was he doing? Apparently a blood vessel had burst. Luckily, Julia caught the eyeball and put it back in place. That's an amazing calm during a crisis. Hearing of the incident, the crew decided to tease Julia a little bit during the day after. Anjelica Houston shared, quote, I called up every joke store in LA and bought every pair of those joke glasses on springs where the eyeballs fall out. So the next morning when Raul walked out of the set, the entire crew was wearing these glasses. He laughed. It was serious, but it was also really bizarre.
We were saying that this man has terrible health luck, or had terrible health luck, because eventually he died.
Yes,
because of his health. His body was just rejecting life, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It said, I know you have such a zest for life. I know you're so full of life. I, as your body, want to change that. I want to reverse the course of your embrace of living. And actually, and I didn't realize this until just reading this little primer, he had stomach cancer during the making of the film.
And yet, he consistently made brilliant work, was clearly a delight to work with, while his body is failing so much that not only does he have stomach cancer, but his eye fell out of its socket and he caught it and calmly placed it back in.
Yes, yes. calmly placed it back in, and just returned to work. I'm sure they paused briefly so he could get medically checked out. I guess grace under pressure or something. I guess, you snap into survival mode. But that is... meanwhile, there's no explanation as to how it actually happened. Like, what caused that to happen? Was he going, ah, ha, 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 and the eye just popped out?
Well, that's what I was thinking. Was it like the train scene or something when he's like ranting and raving, and that maybe, in intense moments of like acting, the eye went.
Thank goodness that never happened on stage.
Well, I mean, that'd be great for Dracula, wouldn't it? Just...
That'd be in league with some of the things where, like, I'm trying to remember who it was. Dick Shawn, who's in The Producers, died on stage. It was a one-man show, though, which started with him laying under a pile of newspapers, which he would do before the audience arrived. So the audience would arrive having no idea that Dick Shawn is lying on the stage for the entire time that they're filtering in, which is a long time, way too long, especially for just a gag like that. Like, hey, surprise, I'm here. So during the intermission, he laid back down on the stage. So the stagehands knew that to be the case. That's what he did. And he had a heart attack, died, and he had fallen down on stage. And it took a few minutes before someone realized, wait a second, he might not be okay. And by the time they got there, he had passed.
But had they like opened the curtains again or something, and the audience was sat looking at a dead body?
Well, the curtains were still open because they went to intermission without closing the curtain. Excuse me.
Oh.
So he lays down normally, but he fell down. So no one was any the wiser. And also they must have felt that, oh, this is just part of the show. Like, other bad things have happened to people on stage, and people just think it's part of the show, because how would you know any different? You didn't see the one the night before, and you won't see the one after you saw the final performance.
Well, because there won't be one after now.
Yes, exactly.
It's
right.
that famous Tommy Cooper thing, isn't it, where he had a heart attack and died on stage, and people laughed because they thought he was taken, it was a joke.
Wasn't that funny, folks? So be proud of yourself for laughing. So speaking of Anjelica Houston's corset, it was a metal corset.
But why? Why? Was it cheaper to make?
I think it just needed to be so severe. Oh, she also had her chin tucked and, again, temporarily lifted her eyes with gauze, and that got tighter and tighter, the eye lifts, and the temples started to throb. And also, I guess the woman who originally played the Carol Kane role was encased in latex because of all of the prosthetics and heavy fat suit and all that. And I need to read Anjelica Houston's book because she goes into like very fine detail about this. And also, I didn't realize she had a book. I have to read that book because,
I didn't realize she had a book either.
I think it's called My Life, and I'm fascinated by her. One of the best things is that in the Roman Polanski case, the infamous one, she testified against him. She walked in when not this actual act was going on, but when he was at the house, Jack Nicholson's house, with the underage girl, and she thought something fucking weird's going on here. And then in the whole process of the case unfolding, she was busted with a quantity of cocaine. And so to get that expunged from her record and to get immunity from it, she testified against Polanski, and I love that.
Well, as she should.
No, exactly. Like a side benefit.
She's not hurting anyone.
No, a side benefit, you get the coke charge cleared and free to move on. You go back into Jack Nicholson's house and find a whole bunch of other cocaine. For parties, he had upstairs and downstairs cocaine. Upstairs was for the selected special guests. Downstairs was for the commoners.
That man. I'm assuming they broke up soon after this.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Here's a note on animating.
Nothing to quite tear you apart than Roman Polanski.
Yeah, he'll do it every time. Apparently, she was quite heartbroken because Nicholson never stopped philandering. Now, Christopher Hart is the name of the actor slash magician who played Thing. And it said he got into some weird situations to portray the living hand. To get the correct posture for Thing, he had to lay face down on a dolly wearing a black leotard while crew members pushed him around set. And then, of course, he was digitally erased later. That reminds me of how impressive the practical effects are in the film and how practical effects add so much to a film, and they never rot. Even when you can tell, oh, that's on a string, oh, that's a miniature set, they never disappoint. They hold up. Like, for instance, The Thing is the best example of that. That still is so absolutely fucking horrifying that despite it being one of the best things I've ever seen, I never want to see it again, and I'm haunted by the memory of a couple of the scenes.
Is in John Carpenter's The Thing?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't say that so casually while we're talking about a film that features Thing. Yeah, wouldn't it be great if I said those scenes with the hand running across the highway or the motorway is so terrifying I couldn't take it.
Him in the post office sorting room.
Oh my God, the scariest thing.
Job you'll never recover. Yeah.
No, it's scary.
No, I mean, it's funny because you see sort of even slightly iffy practical effects, and like you say, it doesn't rot. But then you watch something that has terrible CGI and it almost hurts your eyes.
Yeah, it does.
I remember watching, I don't know why I'm going for this film specifically because there's other films that have it, the Spawn film. And the CGI I remember being so bad that it gave me a headache.
Mm-hmm. It'll do that. Because and what I always wonder about that is that is definitely the sort of thing where it seems so impressive at the time of creation that since people haven't seen anything like that, it appears to be the greatest thing that ever happened. But it's not. It's ghoulishly bad a couple years later when the technology improves, which begs the question, does every technology have that aspect to it? And shouldn't one always future-proof? When you see YouTube videos that are 360p, that are like old, and granted, people didn't have necessarily the technology available to them at the time, but when you watch, say, a podcast that was filmed in 360p or 480, you can see the age in it, which is also interesting because film has a timestamp on it that doesn't necessarily make it unusable, but you can tell when it was filmed, which is kind of interesting. So I wonder often about how things will be viewed that originated in the digital age when we're past 4K.
Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't, I mean, you say like I find old YouTube videos. I find it charming and it places me in a time, it puts me in a time and place seeing them. And the same with films where, you know, something's a particular, you know, things have a certain look.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking. Because we're so still in the nascent digital era and starting to go into the more sophisticated one, because digital when it came out it was so new and it was so exciting and sharp. But then you get, you know, mini DV when it was first introduced was this revelation, and still is when you compare VHS camcorders to mini DV. But then everything has gone so far past mini DV that it is now similar to Super 8 film in that it puts a timestamp on it in the same way that film like that does, like the film of Fester and Gomez at the beach.
Oh, well, that's a
exactly.
35, is that a 35 millimeter?
8 millimeter or 16 millimeter. I also love that in the footage of the dance, the high school dance, which of course all high school dances were professionally filmed by documentary crews, something that one forgets until you see the Addams Family. One of my favorite lines is, "You were always the dashing one. I was so jealous." Said by one of the most handsome men in the show business to Christopher Lloyd.
Well, that's the Addams Family.
It is.
Christopher Lloyd is going to be in series 2 of Wednesday.
Wow.
Because Christina Ricci was in season 1.
Oh, okay.
And I think if it keeps being renewed, they'll probably get Anjelica Houston in 3.
That would be great. That reminds me, Tim Curry is returning to acting roles. I mean, I don't imagine he's going to be involved in the series, but for a long time it seemed like he would not because of the stroke and his the further consequences of. But he is returning in some form or fashion, which is nice. It was nice to see him as the narrator in that live version of Rocky Horror. I think it was the only thing I could stomach about that remake.
I quite liked the what's her name? Oh, we follow each other online. She played the usher girl at the beginning, and she sang the song. She's a singer. What's her name? She had like a bit of a big moment in sort of the mid-2000s.
So
like
I just want to let everyone know that, and they're watching this now, this is the promotional reel and TikTok I'm going to put out first. We can find out who it is after, then tag them, and just have you going, we follow each other. What's her name? She had like a moment, like in the past.
I mean, it's a little offensive, isn't it?
Well, I think we've hit a couple offensive moments. This might be the best one because they might actually see it. I won't put it in. I won't put it in the promo reel.
If I don't follow them anymore, wouldn't it?
Or, well, I don't know. It'd be better.
Me anymore.
Yeah, well, it would be better if they ceased following you after
because of this. Or just before this came out, they look at me and they think, fuck it, I'm not bothered anymore.
I got to get my follow list down.
What was I going to say? I was thinking about. We started going off about Rocky Horror then. Sorry, my cat's just walked into the room and is screaming.
Well, yeah, the cat screaming. Pets come in and they go, "You're off topic again. You've gone too far off piece."
Have you come to put me back on track, Puss?
Well, we do what we want to do, say what we want to say, think what we want to think.
Also the MC Hammer doing the credits song for Addams Family. It's so bizarre.
It's so weird, and also that I love that it's that it's Mr. It or It that rolls up. Sorry, forgive me. I'm sorry. You are the subject matter expert, and I do apologize. I don't like.
Well, I got it wrong about whose parent was whose earlier.
Okay, thank you very much for your generosity of spirit by, dipping down into the slime that I'm coursing throughout this episode. It listens to Too Legit to Quit when he's on his way to the reunion.
Do you know that originally the song at the end was going to be Michael Jackson?
That's right.
And they thought, well, maybe that's not a good idea.
So this is actually next on the list of factoids. So it's, I guess, kismet that it happened. So this is what it said. The production team booked Jackson to make the theme song. In the music video for the song, Jackson's neighbors chase him from his home in the Addams Family mansion with pitchforks. The whole project imploded, though, when the singer encountered some legal issues. That's a very tasteful and demure.
That's a very nice way of putting it, like Roman Polanski in legal issues.
Yeah, exactly. He had a couple legal issues and a couple travel problems.
He's still not able to get back, Roman Polanski. I don't know what's happened. He's lost his passport or something. I don't know.
Something about that, or maybe he only does train travel. And it's hard to get over the waterways. I'm not sure. Something's getting in the way of that. So even though the producers cut ties with Michael Jackson, they left a joke in the movie at his expense. Writer Paul Rudnick explains. Quote, there's a moment in the film where Wednesday, Pugsley, and Joel, to discipline them, were placed in the Harmony Hut. Now, this is in the sequel.
That's in the second film.
All right. I don't want to spoil it for myself, so go ahead.
It's such a quick little joke. They just look up and there's a Michael Jackson poster and the other kid starts screaming. Just goes like at the poster.
At the poster.
This if you thought this first one was camp, the second one is going to like you might get so overwhelmed that you also have a heart attack and fall over.
Okay, sure.
Did you think this film was like peak camp?
It was kind of. Yeah, fairly. Maybe not peak, but definitely the graph would tip up there and then go down, tip up, and then was it Dr. Pinchagos?
Dr. Pinderschloss.
Pinderschloss, forgive me. That whole thing was amazing. I also loved the psychotic finding the baby, brainwashing it, or them, brainwashing them, and then knowing the whole time that it's probably this family's relation. Just trying to get those doubloons.
So, if you think that's sort of making its way onto camp, Values is... yeah, it's the not that I think it's much of a spoiler. You will be aware of some scenes or images from it. Again, it introduces the concept of a normal person who is evil.
Is it Joan Cusack?
Yes, who is a serial killer. She marries men. She's
Black
the Black Widow. She marries rich men, and then they die in mysterious circumstances.
It's funny. I wonder
she's
how.
Obviously, like a beautiful, pretty woman, you know, like elegantly put together, beautiful manners, but she's a psycho.
Speaking of another film that's not Addams Family, have you seen Black Widow, the Teresa Russell, Deborah Winger film?
No, I have not.
Obviously, there's a Black Widow woman in it, and there's a scene where she's bribing someone, and she said, "There's two things to know about me. I'm very wealthy, and I'm also very rich." I could be flipping rich and wealthy, but it's the effect is the same, essentially.
That not quite the same thing, but when people say the same thing twice, I find it very funny. There was that woman that did like a YouTube apology. I don't keep up with YouTube type things, but she got memed quite a lot of the woman talking about someone, and she says sucking dick and cock.
Yes, I've heard that, and someone else said they said something like "fucking dick" and "fucking cock," something like that. It's quite good. Incidentally, John Turturro, at the conclusion of Miller's Crossing, thanked Barry Sonnenfeld, who of course was the cinematographer on the film, and he said, "Oh well, no, it's nice working with you too." He said, "No, my entire portrayal of this whining homosexual," which is how Barry Sonnenfeld deemed it. He's to make a self-deprecating joke, was entirely based on you, Barry. So thank you. He just said my character. And Sonnenfeld,
I mean, you've heard Barry Sonnenfeld talk, obviously. So you know he's sort of neurotic is the only way I can think to describe him, and sort of complainy but quite confident.
Yeah, it's an interesting mixture. High anxiety, high confidence, because you have to be super confident to do some of the camera stuff that he did even early on with Blood Simple. There's a couple really, really crazy things that were done on almost no budget. And then also in Raising Arizona. And actually, a matter of fact, they used a wooden plank to anchor the camera on. So some of the shots are using a wooden plank with like two people running on either side to achieve the effect that they got.
He's so good. Such a brilliant... I wonder if he's got anything coming up.
That'd be good to know. I haven't seen any of the Men in Black films. I should watch Wild Wild West. Okay, then I'll check those out. Wild Wild West, I want to see, because now it is entered into the category we were previously discussing of films with CGI that must just be horrific now.
I don't know if theirs is that bad. The film is just not very good, I think, is the problem there. It's very silly and very of its time. When we were saying earlier about films that look like a certain period, and generally, it will age well in the fact that you can go, cool, well, this is made in the 80s, this was made in the 90s, which doesn't indicate anything good or bad. But I think there is a time period in the early 2000s when there's a certain look to a film and you just go, oh no.
Yeah, didn't age well. Much like a lot of the fashion of the early 90s. Like Gap had a mustard turtleneck. There was a lot of bad clothing in the early 90s, in my estimation. I'd
wear a mustard turtleneck.
Well, sure. Well, you have a mustard pillow behind you.
I do, yeah. I love mustard. Don't be silly.
Don't be casting aspersions upon mustard. I like our color palettes. Also, very throw pillow friendly going on
this
here.
behind my head actually looks like I've got a mustard halo.
That's what they used to call you, right? Old mustard halo.
Old mustard halo. Whenever I think of the word mustard, I think of Alice in Wonderland in the cartoon one where he goes, "Mustard? Don't be silly." When he's fixing the watch and he's just putting like jam and stuff in it. Mustard, don't be silly.
It made me think also like there should be something. Let's see if I have an appropriate thing to bang on, like a Tom Waits, like mustard halo, mustard halo, mustard halo, mustard halo. You know, there's something like that.
Mustard halo. A man has 2 legs and he lives in the parrot with a mustard.
Halo, grey poop on a brown, yellow if you frown, my mustard halo. I think we should send this off to him. I know he doesn't do other people's material that often, but this, forget about it.
He has done a few covers, you know, Bella Ciao, that sort of thing, but this one might. Have you ever seen from a quiz show or something when someone has to tell? It's like a thing that comes up that says, "Oh, you tell a Greek tragedy in the style of," and it says Tom Waits.
Oh wow! Okay.
And I can't. It's something about someone pushing a boulder up a hill. Is that?
Oh, Sisyphus.
Yeah. So he tells the story of that in the style of Tom Waits, and there's like a pianist that starts playing like a very Tom Waitsy thing, and then a guy just makes up the lyrics. It's great.
Is that? I wonder if that's Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Maybe, yeah.
They did a lot of that jiggery-pokery, Colin Macquarie and his cabal. So Sonnenfeld, as we were talking about, very neurotic, also very anxiety-prone. And as this was his first directorial effort, incidentally, we were talking about Owen. Well, I'll get back to Owen Roseman when I can pronounce his name. So with the anxiety, nerves overtook Sonnenfeld. I guess it does every time he's on set. He gets very sick, he gets emotional, and sometimes he even passes out. And here's what he said about that. I had 4 espressos, 1, 2, 3, 4. And as I'm looking at the monitor, I think, this is weird. Someone's blowing up a balloon inside my chest. And then I said to myself, I better sit down. Then I said to myself, I better not walk to the chair. I better just sit for a moment on the floor here. And then I hear, get a blanket. Someone get a blanket. So, Sonnenfeld has an easy life. It's very chill.
I think a series of unfortunate events. They did they had a trailer where he made his own little coffin. This is all in the book, where I think he tells the story of it about how I think they put 2 sofas on top of each other, and he crawls.
He has, on that set of Addams Family, it was a pillow fort. But then it graduated, I think, from what you're saying, to a much more elaborate fort, one that you couldn't make as a child, because how can you lift a sofa? And meanwhile, would you have 2 sofas in the same room? More than likely not. And sectional is very difficult to make a fort with. I should try it sometime. I have a big, lovely sectional. So, and it really ties the room together to go, another Coen Brothers reference. Oh, so, yeah, the fort, and in talking about Scott Rudin, though I know in the book he goes into much more fine detail about the less salubrious aspects of Rudin's character. He said, the thing about Scott that I really loved is that he respected the fort. If I was in the fort, he wouldn't open it up. He wouldn't tear a pillow away. He would sometimes scream, "Get out of the goddamn fort!" He knew that he couldn't discuss things with Sonnenfeld because that was his isolation tank, if you will.
That is what I aim to achieve.
Yeah. When people talk about diva behavior, there's a spectrum. There is Jean-Claude Van Damme on one side, or JCVD, and then there's the Barry Sonnenfeld, where I love the Barry Sonnenfeld kooky type of thing where someone is completely out of their mind, but they're just out of their mind. Like their life is severely impacted by the level of out of their mindness that they have, and they've found some coping mechanisms that are very gentle, that are very innocuous.
Doesn't hurt anyone.
No one. No. Not even them, because
it's not Bryan Singer hiding in a trailer and doing taking painkillers.
Right.
Unable to shoot X-Men. It's Barry Sonnenfeld covered in pillows.
Yeah, exactly. It's not Paul Schrader slightly immobilized by just a slew of pills and drinking vodka straight up. Incidentally, he did that on the set of Cat People, and listen, whatever method he used to arrive at the end result, it's a fabulous film. Another Nastasia Kinski film. Mentioned 3 of them in this episode. Never before has that happened. Probably never again. Although I held true to the thing that I don't intend to do. Mostly, I don't intend to. I've mentioned To Live and Die in L.A. in every episode of the show, I think in toto. Speaking of which, saying something and then, I don't want to spoil it. New slogan, Craig and Friends. It's not just a podcast. It's also a podcast. So that's a thing I'll be putting out on the web.
Very nice.
Thank you very much. The coffin reminded me of something that I can't believe we didn't talk about yet. We talked about, is it Pinchagos?
Oh, Dr. Pinderschloss.
Pinderschloss. Pinchagos is not involved in this. I think I'm thinking of Michigas. But Dan Hedaya, the go-to guy for the aggravated, I don't know, what are you going to do? Played Carla Tortelli's husband on Cheers. He is incredible in this movie. And when he's the lawyer and he plays, so I'm saying that sentence in reverse. I'm doing some Yoda. Dan Hedaya he plays. So his fencing duel is something so unexpected. Of course, that's the writer or director's choice or invention. But because he's so schlumpy and so put upon, he is the last person you expect to engage in such a high-level fencing duel with Raul Julia. And I love the line, "Dirty pool, old man." I love it.
He's not very good at it, really.
He's good enough, though. He's good enough that he doesn't die.
Well, that's true. And they have a little sword fight at the end, don't they?
They do. And Julia, Gomez, Raul Julia is his character's name. So that he gets him in the crosshairs between 2 swords. And he wasn't able to keep him there. I just thought of another thing, another little loose end. When him and his wife are walking up to the mansion or the estate, we learn that he needs money. We never know why. We never find out why. The wife says, "You better get the money." And at first I thought, oh, is he talking about the expenses that he receives from Gomez, to which one wonders, what are the recurring legal expenses of the Addams family? How much
rich for some reason.
Wildly rich. One description of the film that I read described them as an aristocratic family. So there's some kind of legend that if you're not aware of it, who is? And they have all these doubloons, which I guess have their own history. I don't know. But they also seem to give him a huge amount of doubloons.
Oh, yeah, but then what is he going to do with doubloons?
Well, he has that one secretary who deals with it, but she's not in the office at the time. And of course, then it doesn't matter what the hell happens, because then we meet what's his name, the Fester's other fake name.
Have you met my son,
Charles? Charles?
Maybe Charles for Adams, perhaps.
Oh, maybe that could be. Let's go with that. And if we're wrong, sue us.
Maybe. Oh, I don't remember
his name was Nastasia Kinski. Oh, incidentally, Roman Polanski dated Nastasia Kinski when she was 15 or 16 years old. So I just want to throw that out there.
Stopped. Well, he has been stopped. That's why he's staying in France.
I thought it was the passport issue. Wait a second.
Yeah. Oh, no, we shan't get into that. My phone battery is going to die.
Well, that's okay. My therapy appointment is in 10 minutes. And that's not a joke, folks. Remember, mental health is wealth.
Today's episode was sponsored by
mental health. Because remember, Craig and Friends, it's not just a podcast. It's also a podcast. Well, of course, everyone knows where.
Today's episode was sponsored by mental health.
I do as well.
not repairing it, not
No.
helping it. No, ailing you.
That's right.
In fact, that's why we do this, because we're mentally ill.
That's 100% correct. That's 100% correct. And that's why we're going to do a sequel to this. And I'm sure as soon as we hit stop, incidentally, when you hit stop, please just wait to see that it says completed uploading, because it records locally and then it goes international. So this is the other advantage or curiosity about Riverside. But wait till you see the end result. Joe, I want to thank you so much, not only for conducting this fabulous chat with me, but for suggesting the film, because I do love something that is outside of my previously existing knowledge, or a film that is not in the canon of my mind. So, and you've enlightened me to a film that I don't know. I never disregarded it. I just thought, oh yeah, the Addams Family. Isn't Tim Curry in one of those? And that would be the sum total of my thoughts about it, because I do try to see every film that Tim Curry is in. However, I was dissuaded because I thought, after reading about it, I thought, oh, isn't that like 2 or 3 down the line? And isn't that a replacement for someone else? I don't know.
Well, it is not just an honor. If it was my duty to tell people to watch The Addams Family, is what it is.
Thank you. And I also I appreciate both of our challenges to get here after many months. Some could say years. Time is immaterial when it comes to Addams Family.
We made it happen eventually.
We did. And sending love to you and Aaron. And I look forward to seeing you when I'm back in the old, the Big Smoke. And all that. And if you come to Los Angeles, well, if I'm here, let's try to
You
do
might
something.
be here.
I could be there. That's right. If you're in LA, I might be there. And I'm going to have to find a mustard halo all on my own.